New York City is home to nearly 500,000 undocumented residents. That's 500,000 people, families, workers, neighbors who contribute to the city's economy, culture, and communities. But now, with Donald Trump back into the White House, their future is under direct threat. Trump has promised to launch the largest deportation operation in U.S. history, a plan that could turn entire neighborhoods into battlegrounds and leave countless families devastated. And it's all going to be legal.
If we can't get assistance from New York City, and we may have to double the number of agents we send to New York City, because we're going to do the job. We're going to do the job without you or with you.
His administration planned to invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, a law that hasn't been widely used in modern times. Tom Homan, Trump's border czar, has already warned sanctuary cities that federal agents will come for undocumented immigrants, whether local government cooperate or not. Imagine federal agents sweeping into neighborhoods like Jackson Heights, Sunset Park, Washington Heights, or Harlem, where immigrants' communities thrive. Imagine parents arrested on their way to work, children left waiting outside school to be picked up. These are the real fears haunting families today. And how did we get to this point? In the last 2 years, thousands of migrants have arrived in New York City, fleeing violence and poverty in their home countries. While New York has long been a sanctuary city, news about the Adams administration lax policies spread like wildfire across the country, motivating thousands of migrants to find their way to the Big Apple. This also opened doors for dangerous elements like gangs and cartels to exploit vulnerable population within the city. And consequently, these new arrivals have stretched the city shelter system, overwhelmed resources, and created tension in communities that were already struggling. And New York residents are tired of all this nonsense. The question on everyone's mind is, who will suffer the most? It's definitely not just going to be the new migrants who, to this day, have not been able to fit in within New York's culture, given that they have been either staying in shelters or living on the street. No, the people that's going to be mostly affected by Trump's mass deportation will be families and people who lived in the shadows for decades. Today, I'm going to break all this down for you, from the fear-gripping immigrants communities in New York to the broader implication of Trump's mass deportation plan and the challenges posed by the surge of new migrants and infiltration of criminal organizations into shelters. You are now tuned into the Mady Cisse Podcast, and I'm your host, Mady Cisse. Buckle up and let's get into it right after this. Mayor Eric Adams has vowed to uphold New York sanctuary policy, which limit cooperation between local law enforcement and federal immigration authorities. However, it is a bit hard to believe him at this point, given that after months, weeks of New Yorkers complaining about the voucher system, which only benefited migrants, he suddenly stopped payments the day after Trump won the election, which is super suspicious to say the least. New Yorkers know all too well that Mayor Adams is all about politics and only takes calculated risk when it goes in his favor. New York City is home of nearly 500,000 undocumented residents who now face an uncertain future. These are people who have lived here for years, often decades. They work in our restaurants, build our homes, and care for our children. Many of them pay taxes, attend schools, and worship in our churches and mosques. But with Trump back in power, they are at risk of being uprooted from their lives they've built. The Trump administration strategy will be very aggressive, according to Trump's border czar. He already sent a warning message to sanctuary cities like New York that federal agents will come for undocumented immigrants whether they cooperate or not. This creates a chilling effect, not just for immigrants and migrants, but for the city's social fabric.
If you're in the country illegally, you shouldn't feel comfortable. Absolutely not. I won't feel comfortable if I'm in the country illegally. You shouldn't be comfortable either, because when you enter this country illegally, you have committed a crime. You are a criminal, and you're not off the table.
In addition to its undocumented resident, New York City has also welcomed 100,000 migrants in the past 2 years. These are people fleeing violence, poverty, and political instability in countries like Venezuela, Ecuador, or Haiti. They arrive with hopes of rebuilding their lives, but the reality here isn't always what they imagine. The influx has overwhelmed the city shelter system, right? With many migrants living in makeshift accommodations. Shelters are originally intended as safe havens for migrants fleeing violence and poverty, and have become fertile ground for exploitation by dangerous criminal organizations. These gangs are not just engaging in petty crimes. No, they are orchestrating operations involving theft, drug trafficking, and human trafficking. And vulnerable migrants are being targeted, coerced, or even recruited into criminal enterprises. Some of these individuals arrive in New York already in debt to cartels. Now, let's break down Trump deportation plans. This isn't just a talk at campaign rallies. It's a well-organized strategy. Trump has said he wants to deport millions of undocumented immigrants, starting with those deemed public safety or national security threats. His administration planned to invoke the Alien Enemy Act from 1798, a law that hasn't been widely used in modern times. There's also another law called the Insurrection Act, which Trump could use to deploy military forces to the US-Mexico border. Imagine soldiers conducting immigration enforcement. This is the scale of what Trump is proposing.
On their first day in office, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris suspended deportations. They stopped the border wall. They canceled Remain in Mexico. They reinstated catch and release. They proposed amnesty for millions, along with free health care.
But it's not just border enforcement. Trump's team is targeting workplaces, planning raids to arrest undocumented workers, and penalize employers who hired them. According to Tom Homan, these workplace raids aren't just about enforcement, they are also about finding cases of trafficking and exploitation. The human cost, let's talk about that. Because behind every deportation is a story. Families will be torn apart. Children who are US citizens could lose their parents, forcing them into foster care or leaving them with impossible choices. Consider this. More than 4 million children in the US have at least one undocumented parent. These are kids who go to school with your children, play on the same sports team, and share the same dreams for the future? What happened to them when their parents are deported? Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Mady Cisse Podcast. If the discussion resonated with you, share it, join the conversation on social media, and subscribe for more in-depth exploration of the issues that matter to you the most. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and stay hopeful. Peace.